As we all know, 2020 was a wonderful year, and there were many exceptional albums that were released in that time. In chronological order, I would like to speak about 10 albums that were released in the Pagan Ethno-Folk genre of Europe. The first album was released on March 13th, 2020 by the band Burzum. Hailing from France, this album was entitled Thulian Mysteries. The album has an ambient, almost dungeon synth feel. It is very quiet, minimal, with elements of silence. It almost has a retrospective feel to a time that once was. My favorite track from this album is Gathering of Urds. The next album I would like to speak of is released on March 17th, 2020. This is the album Cult by the band Nitland. Hailing from Siberia, this album will put you into a trance-like state. It is very primitive and tribal, almost primordial, as if the artists are calling out from the abyss. It has a clean electronic sound, is sung in a beautiful language, almost reminding me of Heilung in some aspects. My favorite tracks from the album are Rigsthula and Hanum. The next album I would like to speak on was released on March 20th, 2020 by Danish artist Mirker. The album is entitled Folkesange. It has a very light, calming vibe with a Kravik Lear sound and a departure from the black metal and folk aspects of the previous work. This one is predominantly traditional. It has a very beautiful ending, and the song Winter reminds me of Enya. My favorite track from the album is Tor I Helheim. The next album on the list is by Ukrainian artist Dacha Bracha. The album Alambari was released on March 27th, 2020. This album is very jazzy and unique and has very danceable elements. All the members of this band are extremely talented, and the singing is very interesting, almost like they're singing in a round. The music is very bubbly and uplifting. The next album was released on April 29th, 2020. This is by the band Theodore Bastard from St. Petersburg, Russia. The album is entitled Volcha Nagoda. The album incorporates many bird sounds and is very hypnotic, haunting even. The singer has an amazing vocal range. The album is good from beginning to end. It is mellow and emotive, perfect and beautiful. Overall, this is the best album on the list, in my opinion. It has a fullness in sound, and my favorite tracks are Volchuk, Shumi, Pojato, and The Flute Song. The next album I would like to speak of was released on June 19th of 2020 by the band Moon and the Night Spirit from Hungary. The album is entitled Aether. The sounds are mysterious and full of intrigue. Everything sounds far off and dark, like wood elves in the forest would pop out at any moment. This album is for totally nocturnal creatures. My favorite tracks are Logos and Kaputlan Kapukan At. The next album I would like to speak of is from Iceland and was released on August 1st of 2020. This album is entitled Kveðamaður. It is minimal, powerful, sung in Icelandic, with a Tuvan throat singing influence. It was a very anticipated album and kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me and probably a lot of other people. It is somber with lots of reverb, almost as if you're sitting in a cave in ancient times. My favorite track off the album is Hrafnagaldr's Odin. Hrafnagaldr Odins. The next album on the list was released on September 4th of 2020 by the band Eldrum from Norway. The album is entitled Kvil, like a clock, minimal and hypnotic, like a wolf howling, emotive and strong, powerful Viking feel, like 793 white-knuckled Vikings rowing to war. I particularly enjoy the drum sound from this album. My favorite tracks are Heimkomst and Gravferd. The next album on the list is by Swedish band Hinderfjall. Grimfrost released the album Fram Tidernes Beginelsa on November 20th, 2020. I had been looking personally forward to this album for some time. There is a great Vårdruna cover on this band's YouTube page. It has a beautiful outdoor campfire type of nighttime harmonies going on, a very light and cleaned sound, and beautiful voices harmonizing. My favorite tracks are Doldekrafter and Sunas Drauder. Last, and certainly not least, is an album called All Hands by Beolach. The last mention on this list is an album that it was not released in 2020, but I would like to mention it. It is worth mentioning as somewhat of a wraparound album. It was released on January 22nd, 2021. The album is by Vårdruna, and the album is called Kvitraven. It's a very solid, consistent album, thick, with a rich sound, classic feel, sacred. What can be said that has not been said already about this legendary artist and pioneer of the folk music in modern Europe? So there we have my list of my favorite albums released in the past year, of my favorite bands, and pardon me for all the pronunciations that I butchered, but I did my best, and I hope you enjoy some of the great music I have spoken about. Thank you.